voice?
Hey, Sinners, I'm Shannon,
And I'm Sean.
and this is Sinful Cuts.
Yeah, folk horror month. Ooh.
Woo!
Is that
Uh,
folk horror? Ooh.
the, it is now. It is for this episode, at least.
Is that folk horror or is that just constipation?
Well, if you've seen this movie, maybe that'll the creature design me that can come into play. At least, I mean, at least that's where I think you got that from. So today we're talking about 2017's The Ritual.
Oh, I love this movie so much. This is a yearly watch for me because this is the cross section of folk horror, which I love, and creature feature, which I love. Because a lot of folk horror, no, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't make a blanket statement like that. But folk horror tends to be more like human interaction and like human comeuppance. Um, you don't tend to get a lot of like creature action in there. So when I get that, oh boy, it's like you got your chocolate and my peanut butter.
Yeah.
So good.
The good old Nutella and fluff.
Mm. And I mean, I look. I feel like you love this movie as well, but I don't know that for a fact. So I'm really excited to start talking about it. So we got the Adam Neville source material. Did you ever read the novel?
I never read the novel, no. I heard it is very that well, maybe a little bit different than
Yeah.
the movie portrays to be. Um, but I am curious enough to read it though.
Let me put it to you this way. It's different enough that the choices made for the movie are actually really, really solid choices. So I'll talk a little bit about it without spoiling. I know you know how the movie ends, but I won't spoil the novel because it is different enough that you will get a lot of enjoyment out of reading it. Let's just say like the big beats are there, but a lot of the smaller decisions are they're different enough that it won't be a completely new experience for you reading the book, but it'll be different enough that you're really really going to enjoy it.
Mhm.
I mean, look, I'll tell you the first one right off the bat is that there's no murder in the beginning.
Oh, okay.
It's four university friends that decide to go to Sweden on this hike because Luke, Rafe Sproul's character, Luke, he's kind of like the oh boy, he's like the ne'er do well of the group. Like they all have jobs, they're all kind of carrying on with their lives and starting families and have careers, and he's kind of still like he's the guy who's still stuck in his uni days. You know,
Yeah. Yep.
I don't. I mean, I don't know what that's like at all. I can't. I
Me
couldn't wrap my
neither.
head around it. It felt so foreign to me, of being someone who was in their 30s, going, "I think I really need to get a job." So that's why they end up going. That's why they end up on that trail in the book. So, like I said, there's like little differences. So the choice of making their trek to that unfortunate forest in the movie to pay tribute to their murdered friend is a really smart decision on, all right, how do we get these characters from point A to point B? What's better than, oh, okay, you know what, this is, I believe his name was Ray, this is what Ray was talking about and this is what he wanted to do. So even though we were kind of making fun of him in the pub for it, and all of us were like, there's no fucking way we're going on a hike in the wilderness, it makes sense how they do it as a tribute. And boy, oh boy, they should have gone to Ibiza.
They should, yes. I think the character's name was Robert. That was
Sorry,
Paul.
Robert, you're right.
Yeah, Paul Reed was the actor who got obviously Sinners. We're spoiling this movie as always.
Yeah.
So but quick, if you want, I'll read the quick little plot, little synopsis for you. Well, you kind of did already, but just the official one. A group of old college friends reunite for a trip to a most dangerous country in Europe, Sweden, as you said, where they encounter a menacing presence that is stalking them. So Yeah, so it starts off with the hike. There's like a murder in the very beginning, and I think that was really smartly used because it does make for great cinematography later on. Because obviously,
So
watching your
good.
friend get murdered, I would think would definitely leave a mark. Would definitely leave a little bit of trauma, which it clearly goes into Luke's psyche quite a bit.
Yeah.
And this creature, which we'll get to a little bit more in a second, but this creature, clearly takes full advantage of it. How it knows how, I mean, there's definitely some questions that are left, for you to, just ponder about basically. But yeah, but it definitely uses that to its advantage while it stalks all the men
It's
for sure.
just there's so many there's so many great things about this movie. There's so many layers, is what I'm trying to say. There's so
Yeah,
many layers
I
to this
agree.
movie. Because you have and it's funny, it's a little bit like what we were talking about with Emily Hughes with Midsummer the previous week. This is a completely different movie. Sure, they're both in the folk horror, arena, but where Ari Aster had a film that was almost like a play because there was so much going on in the foreground and there was so much going on in the background. Like there's so many elements that you could just rewatch that movie over and over again. This movie's completely different. I mean, all of the action is in the foreground, but there's a sense of dread in the background because
Hmm.
to your point, they're getting stalked, there's something out there. And it's this incredible shot on location in the Carpathians, right? The Carpathian Mountains in Romania.
Yeah.
And when they shot it, it was all of the foliage was dead, and it was just all those stick like needle dagger like trees, which are so
Yeah.
terrifying, and the way they're layered on top of each other that you can see into the distance, but you really can't see into the distance. You know,
Yeah, it's so dense that
it's so
really.
dense. It's so terrifying. Why people go in nature, I'll never figure it out. It's so terrifying.
But to go further a little bit into what the creature does before you even see the creature. So we'll get to that in I think in a second. But it's so it they first come across, and I keep hearing a couple different things. I feel like somebody said it was a bear, which I think I thought originally it was. Some people say it was a deer, and other people say it was a moose. So but it definitely looks like more of like a stag looking creature. But either way, you see this creature picked up like many feet in the air, like well above the men's head level, and just impaled
Yeah.
on a tree, still bleeding. So it's just like, what the fuck could possibly do that? But what do, Sinners? They go forward.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, this looks terrible. Let's go deeper into the woods.
I mean, I've only been lost in the lingerie section of Loman's. So I can't fully appreciate being lost in the woods. But that alone was terrifying for me as a young child. But it's just I put myself in their shoes. And when you're surrounded 360 degrees by wilderness and you have no compass, or the compass isn't working and you have no sense of direction because this isn't where you live, the sense of dread and the sense of hopelessness. And I know this is just a movie, but it gives me such anxiety
Hmm.
of putting myself in their shoes, of just being like, well, pick a direction. What does it matter? Because we're screwed. It's like,
Yeah.
I think about it a lot because I spend a lot of I don't do the woods, and I don't, although I love nature, but I don't do the woods and all that, but I do the water. I do the water a lot. We
Okay.
live on Long Island, and it's hard to live here and not, find yourself on the water. But
Mm.
once you lose sight of land, and you have a general sense of like, okay, we came from that direction, land's over there. But if you're out fishing and you're 2 miles offshore and you like truly lose sight of land, and then you're distracted, and then if someone were to say where's shore, I don't know.
Yeah,
that
exactly,
way, that way, you know,
both
it's
sides.
yeah, it's so insanely terrifying. So what I'd like to do for this movie, if it's okay with you, Shannon, because unfortunately, although this movie is phenomenal and everyone should see it, there's
Mm,
not a lot of supplemental material about it. You know, there's not a
not
lot on.
really.
Yeah, there's the trailers on YouTube. There's a couple of articles from like Slate Film and Collider where I cobbled together some things, you know, but it's very, very sparse. Like this movie has not really been deconstructed, and it will eventually because it's highly regarded. Eventually, we'll start to get the articles on it, maybe some videos and stuff like that. But I'd like to kind of go through it in chronological order if you're cool with that, and we can just kind of like unpack it as we go along.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So you had mentioned, we start off in London. We got four. We've got the university friends. We got five university friends. Robert and Luke go in to buy a bottle of booze for Luke, and Luke gives off. He's not necessarily like he is in the novel, where he's kind of like you know the guy who can't get it together. But you can tell that the uni friends are like a step beyond where he is. You know,
I took it as like he's just like a late bloomer. Like
yes.
they like they're discussing they apparently always went on like a bro trip,
Yeah.
and but they're saying like, listen, like I can't do pub crawls anymore. Like I'm like, they're getting older. It wasn't as appealing to them to go I don't party rage.
Well, they all have kids too
Uh,
now, except for Luke,
right. Right. That's what I mean. Like they're married. Yeah, their life perspective has changed a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all. Yeah, like, they can't do like spring break in Cancun anymore. Yeah.
I definitely, there, uh, I saw Luke. Let's just say, let's just say I definitely saw Luke. So unfortunately, Robert gets killed in a robbery. And I love this scene for what it is because it's that whole you're making decisions on the fly or you're not making decisions, more importantly. So Luke does the robbers don't see him, and he's able to kind of duck around the corner and hide, and he grabs a bottle, and he's having that internal, should I or shouldn't I in his head of, well, here's my friend, but I'm scared. And it's that whole, what does it mean to be masculine? What does it mean to live up to the moment? And Robert also makes his decisions of not giving his wedding ring, and that is
Right.
what instigates, unfortunately, his murder because he won't give his wedding ring up. And it's and that again plays into, what are these decisions of masculinity that we make, and then the consequences that unfold because of that. Luke makes a decision which is viewed upon especially by oh, for fuck's sake,
Like the fight or flight type
not
of concept.
his friend, god damn it,
Robert?
not Robert, uh the guy who uh the guy who he ends up in the shack with.
Oh, I think that's Dom.
Dom. So
Yeah, Sam Troughton, I believe.
yeah, so Dom very much is like, you were a coward. You should have helped Robert out. Robert makes his decision not giving the wedding ring, which he's standing up for himself, and he gets murdered because of it. So it's these questions of like, what does it mean in that moment? Through the male lens of, do you stand up for your ground? Well, one guy did, and he fucking died for it, and then
Mm,
one guy didn't, but now he has to live with the shame. And it's
right.
it's for the most part it's unspoken until we get deeper into the movie, and then it becomes very much spoken about. I mean, it literally becomes a fight between Dom and Luke. But that's what transpires, and that's the catalyst for getting those guys out into the wilderness, which
Yeah.
made a lot of sense for me. It's unlike the novel, but it rang true.
Yeah, I think it was great for a cinematic perspective.
Yeah.
Especially like, because basically like you see the scene like, Robert gets brutally murdered in they keep calling it a convenience store, but it was a liquor store.
And
Um,
to have it happen on a busy street, you know, basically what felt like it was like, you know, maybe 10 o'clock at night. I mean, there's hustle and bustle all over. And it felt
yeah,
very real. Like these are the way things happen.
sometimes, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like they would just walked in and like, right, it was just like they were just like chit-chatting away, like not even paying attention, not noticing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they just see the girl cowering in the corner, like obviously a little bloodied and everything, and fucking frightened as shit.
Hell
And
yeah.
then now you're like, what? Wait, what's happening? And then the I guess they were in the back, maybe looking for a safe, I guess is what I assume. You
Yeah.
know, the robbers then come to light, and then they're like, oh shit.
I mean, just that you know, penny drop of, oh, we've walked right into it. And now we're in it. Like there's no
Hmm.
ramp up, you know?
Yeah. And
It
now
just
what?
felt, I love the
Yeah.
way that scene is staged because it felt very real, you know? Um,
Yeah, I agree.
I hope you're sinners. I hope no one ever gets in that situation. But if you do find yourself, it's almost like a car accident. You know, you're on the expressway and all of a sudden you just see, you know, the car to your right is just veering across traffic and everything's immediate. You know, you don't get a buildup. It's just you're in it now. And the decisions that you make in those nanoseconds could be the decisions of life or death, you know. Ooh,
Yeah.
it's very intense.
In this case, it was quite literally so.
Yeah.
Oh,
So David Bruckner directed this movie off a script from Joe Barton, and right away, the first time I watched it, when we went from that convenience store and poor Robert gets murdered, and then you know David sees it, and it's in that stark fluorescent white lighting, and then it's like smash cut, and he's waking up in the tent in
hmm.
Sweden. That was masterful. I mean, that was
Yeah.
just straight up masterful the way that they transition locations and move the story 6 months down the road, you know?
Yeah.
Oh,
And it made sense. You're just like, okay, yeah, now he's here.
yeah.
And clearly it's still with him, and even when they make the well, like what do you call it? Like a little like a vigil, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, like almost in like a cairn, I think it is, like a stone little cairn, and they put his
Okay.
picture on top of it.
Yeah, so they do, and then I think Hutch pours out the rest of the liquor. So it was like, which right there, because like, nobody's saying anything. It's like their moment of silence, but right there, there's just like words unsaid that
Yeah,
whether or not they blame Luke,
it's
and
hanging
I know you,
so heavy.
yeah, like I know you said that, Robert did make his own decision, to not give the wedding ring, and it's possible like if he just gave it to them, they would have been caught maybe the next day, and he would have gotten his ring back,
Yeah,
and you know what I mean, but then we wouldn't be in a horror movie, would we?
but yeah, it's yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So thank
exactly.
you for your service, Robert. But I felt really mean to say, but
You really have it in for Robert.
he was probably a lovely fella. But you could tell that there's definitely words unsaid. And Luke is absolutely carrying this with him, and I know we kind of brought it up before, but that's going to bleed into the cinematography that we're going to get when you start seeing the liquor store melt like molded into the woods, which I just
The
thought that was such a brilliant way to exacerbate the trauma that he's still dealing with.
people who haven't seen this film, that alone, the production design alone is worth seeing the movie for because it's so clever. It works so well. It makes
Hmm.
sense. It doesn't take you out of the film. It actually adds to it. You know, I mean, you're really truly in Luke's psyche. But yeah, I mean, the production design and the sound design in this movie, because don't forget, I mean, we're doing a lot of outdoor shooting. We're doing a lot of on location shooting, and they're using those natural sounds of the forest, you know, branches snapping and wind whistling through dead trees, and it's so atmospheric and effective that it's just I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, like I said, it's a yearly watch for me because this movie is so incredibly well made, and the decisions that they move, it's an hour and a half. I think it's an hour and 36 minutes.
Yeah, it's a very standard cut of a movie, so it's yeah, and it's all paced very, very well, I think,
The,
because
the
it definitely quickly goes.
right? I mean, the economy of the choices made and the economy of storytelling works so beautifully well in this film because just like we're talking about, we go directly from the unfortunately the demise of Robert in the liquor store robbery to now we're in the tent in Sweden and Luke opens it up and then we get this beautiful vista and they're on the side of the rolling hills and you see the forest in the background and it's so expansive and gigantic when we were in this tiny little liquor store a moment before and there was so much dread and so much you were kind of like claustrophobic and so much anxiety and now you're in this wide open space but you can feel the heaviness of Luke's inactions
Mm-hmm.
and then they have their little they have their memorial for Robert and then it's okay like let's trek on and get to the lodge and then we can have our steaks and we can have our scotch and we can have our cigars and
Yeah.
actually do what we want to do but I felt if like the heavy I felt the heaviness so much, and I felt that okay, these four friends are doing this for Robert as tribute, but I didn't get the sense that there was ever going to be another lads trip after this one. They were going through the motion in
Yeah.
honor of Robert, but you could tell that their friendships were disintegrating because of what had happened.
Yeah, like the barbecues with the families probably would have continued, and maybe leaving Luke out a
Luke
little
out,
bit, or
very much so.
only one of them, maybe Hutch, like because Hutch was the one who seemed to take charge of the situation. He was the one that made a decision to go through the woods as a shortcut because Dom tripped and hurt his knee.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Oh yeah, we have the 12-hour or I think it was like 12 to 14-hour trek back around the mountains. Instead, fuck it, let's just go through that thick woods."
Sinners never cut through the woods.
Never
Never.
do that.
It's
Especially one with a bunch of sticks fucking just well, I don't know. We'll get into it. But
never cut through the woods.
don't do that.
I I tried to cut through the mall. You know how that story ended.
Yeah.
No cuts. No cuts. All right. So so now we have and to your point, we got our four lads together and they make this impetuous decision because Dom's a pain in the ass and they knew before they even got on the plane that he was going to be the one who was going to slow him down. He was going to be the one who was going to get hurt first. And sure enough, he lives up to all those things.
They know each other very well.
They make a decision that feels very real for four guys together. And that sounds misogynistic. It could be four of anyone together if you're friends. And you
Right.
make these decisions half-heartedly, or sorry, not half-heartedly, but you make these collective decisions without knowing what the stakes are. Yeah, all right, we'll cut through the woods in a country we've never been to, in a forest we've never set foot in.
What could go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong with equipment that's fresh out of the box that we haven't broken in yet? Like it just, but the stupidity rings so true to me and my friends. If I put myself and my friends in that situation, I'm like 1,000% we would have done the same thing and died.
Yeah, and died.
Yeah. And
Well,
one by one,
they saw. I mean, it's very much like Gilligan's Island, right? It was only supposed to be a 3-hour tour, and I think that's what he said. Literally, it's like, yeah, we'll be there. We'll be back at the lodge in 3 hours, as opposed to 14 hours. So, like, I get whatever. I get the whole point of they were trying to do it, but again, it quickly goes south. So I think now we should dip into they're now in the woods. They're going forward. They see the dead, whatever it is, a moose or a deer. And then they come
oh no,
across.
that was a bear in the tree.
What's the bear?
Yeah, that was a bear.
See, that's either way, it was a huge animal that like not
And it's still
you know
dripping.
yeah. So they're like, yeah, let's get away from it further into the woods. And then they come across a shack, right? Because now it starts raining. So they're like, oh, we need shelter, but let's just break into the shack
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
fast. And then so now I would say this is really even though like we can sense the dread like because we just whatever because of the forest and the dead animal now the one night in this shack really changes their even like their demeanor changes like because they're still trekking on and they're still being guys, they're ripping on each other,
Yeah.
they're like, it'll be fine, stop being a wuss, all that, testosterone.
Yeah. And
But it does quickly change after one night in this shack.
this also plays into that. And forgive me, Sinners, I have to make it, I very much have to make it a male dynamic because it is four guys. And there's nothing stupider in the world than four guys. Nothing. I speak from experience, you know, but you do have to factor in that I don't want to be the one. I don't want to be the one who kind of, wusses out. There's that to it. Now, the stakes escalate exponentially. Like we get way beyond like I don't want to be the chicken in this, and I don't want to be like the softy. We blow past that very quickly in this movie because they very quickly get into a sense of we're in trouble here. Like we've bit off way more than we can chew, being kind of like weekend warriors, and we're out for a laugh. They're in the sauce now. They
Yeah.
have no idea where they are. They have no idea how to get out of the woods. They don't even know what direction to go in. Hutch does take kind of like the pole position, like, all right, let's make, and his decision making skills are pretty sound, like
Yeah, he was the one that kept saying like we have. I think he said Southwest. He's like we just have to go Southwest.
yes,
It's
keep going
right.
southwest. And
It's
then
right there.
he's
Like
also the one who assesses like was it Peter or Philip? I think it was Philip. Philip's got new equipment fresh out of the box, and his feet are kind of fucked. Dom can't even walk. You're the healthiest one. I'll watch these two guys, and you just keep going southwest and bring back help. Like he's at least the one who for the most part realizes what kind of pickle they're in, and
right.
instead of just like aimlessly walking and having their resources and their energy diminish and diminish and diminish, he's like, look, we'll stay here and you go.
Mhm.
And it's good, in theory, it's a good plan. I mean, it goes to shit immediately,
I
because
don't even make it the night.
no, I mean, you know, look, to be fair, all plans go to shit immediately when a Norse god is involved, when a Norse demigod gets involved,
Yeah. We got to get into that soon.
So look, we might as well get into it now. We have the night in the shack where they come across the pagan deity relic statue. They're immediately like, well, it's either frying pan or fire. We can't go out. It's pissing rain. We can't go out there. We have to stay in this galactically haunted house. And all four of them suffer nightmares and delusions to one form or another. Hutch Piece his pants has a nightmare. Dom has a nightmare. Luke is marked by the beast, literally.
Mhm. Literally.
Philip is now almost like a convert and is praying to the statue naked. And this is where the movie tips over from like, okay, we were getting very far away from the lad's holiday and the escalating stakes into it fully tips over into now we're in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I love.
Yeah. Well, because also too, we're still in the moment of okay, there's a lot of weird things going on, but we still don't really know what we're dealing with.
No, which I
And
love as well.
yes, and then it starts giving hints where again, like the huge animal impaled in the trees is very heavy, large, and very high up. So you're just like, what the fuck could have done that? But then Luke, I think their second night they tent up, right? And then Luke, hears growling, feels something large coming. I think after another vision or dream of the liquor store incident. And then all of a sudden, Hutch's tent goes just like
Yeah.
so now we're like, okay, now we're dealing with something that can fucking lift that. No problem.
It's just and because my very good friend, some say best friend, Emily Hughes is probably listening. This is we are ticking the box on our folk horror elements. You know, we have got a rural location, we have got isolation, we have now got paganism, like artifacts of paganism. You know, we're going to now have sacrifice. Like, okay, we're there, we are
Yeah, yeah,
definitely
yeah.
there. And then, like I said, my favorite thing in the world is when you layer in a creature feature on top of that. It's just like chef's kiss.
Absolutely.
So everything at this point escalates pretty rapidly as
Yeah.
far as like being in the woods. They're they leave the shack. Hutch is killed and
It's
disemboweled, and they
in the
find
same way. In the
yeah,
same way.
exactly the same
Yeah.
way they find him. What I didn't realize until my watch just yesterday was that it's very purposeful what Modor, the the
North
offspring of
God.
Loki,
Yeah.
you know, what that creature is doing, because they fully realize that they're being hunted. But what Modor is doing is he's corralling them in a certain direction so that they could end up with the with the acolytes.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because there's very much, other people in the woods, which they
Yeah.
come across footprints and then finally they see a fire, right? I think they start heading towards that, thinking it's civilization, and you're like, oh.
Oh, Shannon, you know what we missed though? The one part that I want to talk about. A huge little clue is laid out for us when Hutch is still alive and the four of them come across a submerged tent. They see a little fabric on the ground. They start pulling it.
Right.
They bring up an entire tent. There's a boot inside, and there's a wallet, and the wallet's got a credit card that expired in 1984, and there's a
Hmm.
family picture there. I have to go back and freeze frame. I do believe that the picture of the family, the wife, is the wife that tends to Luke and Dom, not the old woman, the younger blonde woman, because when you become like an acolyte of Modor, he stops your pain and you're aging.
Right.
So I
Okay.
think it's the
Okay.
woman. I have to go back and
I
check, but I do
think
think it's the woman.
I think you got a good point there because I think I had it in my head that it was, if I remember correctly, there was a little girl. It looked like a standard family of four, like like the picture
Mm-hmm.
perfect, heart family. Um, but I think I assumed it was a little girl grown up, but it would make sense if it was the wife
It
actually.
could it could be the little girl growing up, because this isn't like a vampire where you bit and you don't age a day. I mean, they're just saying it's slowing down the aging process, and that
Right.
you may have it. You may absolutely have it. Oh, by the way, we're gonna get kicked out. I'll send you a link for the new. Um,
Okay.
we got to figure this out, Shannon. I'll cut all this, but we have to figure this out because there's not a chance that we had 40 minutes. We've only been talking for about 20,
That's interesting.
and this thing's ready to kick us. Yeah. So
Okay.
don't worry. We
No,
are going
no,
to
no
get
problem.
kicked. We're going to get kicked in a moment. I'll create a new one, send you
Yeah.
the link, and I'll be waiting for you in that room.
And we'll get right into Modor, I think, at this point, because I really want to talk about her.
I think you're right though. That little girl, because the picture is three people, and then the girl is off to the side.
Mm,
Modor picks the one like the outcast, the one who has all the like the trauma. I think you nailed it.
yeah. Most subjected to succumb,
Yeah,
right? To worship, I think, right? Like, oh, let me take all your pain away and just worship me, in the
yeah.
front. That's it. That's all. That's
No
all you need
biggie.
to do.
No
For
biggie.
how long? Oh, forever.
Now I wonder if it's like if you leave the forest, because you could. I mean, Luke leaves the forest and escapes, but I wonder if those people that like you know basically sell their soul to Modor, I wonder if they leave the forest if they immediately age almost like a vampire. That'd be
That's
cool.
a good question.
That would be cool to find out.
Because
All
I
right.
actually did, we'll wait until the next segment, but I actually have questions on that, actually. So we'll start with that.
All right, cool, cool,
All
cool,
right.
cool. All right, I'm going to end this now before we get the kick out. I'll end it. I'll send you a new link in a minute.
Sounds good.
Bye bye.
Bye.